Most people who think about stroke prevention focus on the obvious things: blood pressure, cholesterol, smoking, exercise. What they rarely think about is what they are drinking every single day. And there is one category of drink that a large-scale study has now linked to a significantly elevated stroke risk. Not alcohol, not energy drinks with extreme caffeine levels, something far more ordinary, something that roughly half of American adults consume at least once every day. Today we are breaking down the research, explaining the 3 mechanisms that connect fizzy drinks to stroke risk, and going through what you can actually do to lower that risk without overhauling your entire life. Stroke is the leading cause of disability in the United States. According to the American Heart Association, it is also largely preventable. A stroke occurs when blood flow to part of the brain is cut off, either by a clot blocking a vessel or by a vessel rupturing. Brain cells begin dying within minutes of losing blood supply. The damage can be permanent, affecting speech, movement, memory, or all 3, depending on where in the brain the stroke occurs. The risk factors are well documented: high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, smoking, physical inactivity, and now, emerging research is adding a category to that list that most people have never considered seriously: carbonated beverages. A study drawing data from nearly 27,000 individuals around the world found that people who reported regularly drinking carbonated drinks had a 22% higher risk of stroke compared to those who did not. And the association held for both sugar-sweetened sodas and artificially sweetened ones. Drinking more than 2 fizzy drinks per day pushed that risk even higher. That number is significant. A 22% increase in stroke risk is not a marginal statistical finding. It is a meaningful elevation in risk from something most people consume without a second thought. Now let us go through exactly why this connection exists, because there are 3 separate mechanisms at work here, and understanding all 3 is important. The first is added sugar. A standard 12-ounce can of regular soda contains approximately 10 teaspoons of added sugar. The American Heart Association recommends that women consume no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day, and men no more than 9. 1 can of soda pushes most people past their entire daily recommended limit before they have eaten a single meal. Why does that matter for stroke specifically? Consistent high sugar intake from sweetened beverages is associated with metabolic syndrome, elevated blood pressure, insulin resistance, and diabetes. All of these conditions damage vascular health over time. They make arteries stiffer, promote inflammation in blood vessel walls, and increase the likelihood of clot formation. Sweetened beverages appear to carry a greater stroke risk than other sources of added sugar, like desserts, possibly because liquid sugar hits the bloodstream faster and produces sharper metabolic responses. The second mechanism is caffeine. Many popular carbonated drinks contain caffeine. Most caffeinated sodas have less caffeine per serving than a cup of coffee, but the numbers add up quickly if you are drinking multiple cans throughout the day. Carbonated energy drinks are a different matter entirely, often matching or exceeding the caffeine content of a full cup of coffee per serving. The study found that drinking more than 4 cups of coffee equivalent in caffeine daily increased stroke risk by 37%. For people with existing high blood pressure, the risk threshold is lower. Research has found that people with hypertension who consume 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine daily, roughly the equivalent of 2 cups of coffee, had an elevated risk of dying from a heart attack or stroke. Caffeine raises blood pressure in the short term by constricting blood vessels and increasing heart rate. For most healthy adults, this effect is temporary and manageable within moderate consumption limits. But for people who already have cardiovascular risk factors, repeated daily caffeine spikes from multiple fizzy drinks create a pattern of vascular stress that compounds over time. The third mechanism is weight gain. Sugar-sweetened beverages contribute calories without providing meaningful satiety. Liquid calories do not register the same way solid food does in the brain's appetite regulation systems. You can drink 300 calories from a large soda and feel no fuller than before you started. Those extra calories consumed daily over months and years contribute to weight gain. The stroke risk associated with being overweight is approximately 22% higher than normal weight, For obesity, that figure rises to 64%. So the caloric contribution of regular fizzy drink consumption feeds directly into one of the strongest independent risk factors for stroke. Switching to diet soda might seem like the obvious solution here, but the research does not support that as a safe alternative for stroke risk. The study found elevated stroke risk associated with artificially sweetened carbonated beverages as well as sugar-sweetened ones. The mechanisms behind the artificial sweetener connection are still being studied, but the finding means the problem is not simply the sugar. There is something about regular carbonated drink consumption, regardless of the sweetener used, that appears to carry cardiovascular risk. One important clarification the study leaves open: it did not specifically address unsweetened sparkling water. Plain seltzer, sparkling water with no added sugars or sweeteners, was not included in the analysis, and the researchers did not draw conclusions about it. If you want the carbonation without the risk factors, plain sparkling water appears to be the safer choice based on current evidence. So what should you actually do with this information? The most direct change is to reduce daily consumption of both sugar-sweetened and artificially sweetened fizzy drinks and replace them with water, unsweetened herbal tea, or plain sparkling water. This is not about perfection. An occasional soda is unlikely to meaningfully change your stroke risk. The concern is with daily habitual consumption, particularly multiple servings per day. Beyond beverages, reducing stroke risk requires attention to a few other lifestyle factors. Eating a diet centered on whole foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and lean protein lowers cardiovascular risk substantially. Potassium intake specifically is worth noting. Most people consume far less potassium than recommended, and research consistently shows that higher dietary potassium is associated with lower stroke risk. Foods high in potassium include bananas, potatoes, salmon, white beans, and oranges. Physical movement matters as much as diet. Sitting for most of the day increases stroke risk by as much as 44%. That is an enormous number, and it does not require intense exercise to address. Regular walking, taking stairs, breaking up long periods of sitting with short movement breaks, these modest changes have measurable cardiovascular benefit. Smoking is one of the most significant modifiable stroke risk factors, and quitting, while difficult, produces rapid improvements in vascular health. Alcohol intake is another risk factor worth managing, with lower consumption associated with lower stroke risk. The stroke risk from fizzy drinks is not the largest factor on this list, but it is one of the most actionable ones because it requires replacing a daily habit rather than making a major lifestyle overhaul. Small, consistent changes in what you drink add up to meaningful reductions in cardiovascular risk over time. Stroke can happen at any age, and it happens far more often to people who did not see it coming. The preventable ones are the ones where the daily habits were working quietly in the background for years before anything dramatic occurred. The decisions you make about what you consume daily are writing the story of your vascular health years before any symptoms appear. That is not a reason for alarm. It is a reason to pay attention. If this channel helps you make more informed decisions about your health, hit subscribe and stick around. Every week we go deep on topics like this one.